All right, well, welcome everybody. My name's Jake, and I'll be leading the service today. There's a quote from Yogananda's teacher, Yukteswar. Everything in the future will improve if you are making a spiritual effort now. And so the topic to talk about today is developing your spiritual practice. I remember years ago I would read these headlines about how a 6-year-old child was playing classical music on the piano, and how a 12-year-old teenager graduates high school and goes to college. And then later on, I read how at an early age, certain souls as children desire to find God. And we can read about it in Yogananda's autobiography and Norm's, the founder of Sunburst. And Yogananda explained that it's because of the results of the lives those people led in their past lifetimes. So if somebody develops a skill of really being good on the piano, they can carry that skill forward to the next life. And it really kind of answered my questions that I had for a long time about how that can happen. You know, I'm struggling to pass history, and these kids half my age are already in college. But most souls, like many of us, travelers in this lifetime, who desire walking a spiritual path must develop a spiritual practice. And this will lead to discovery, as Jesus referred to as the upper chamber, or the spiritual eye. For most of us, learning how to play a musical instrument, or to excel in sports, or learning to drive, dance, yoga, master any kind of task, takes lots of practice to become good at it. And on a personal note, my grandmother, my mother's mom, played piano and sang, and had a piano in her house. And my mother also played piano and sang. It was part of a trio, two of her girlfriends, and they would sing together on the radio. They were that good. And her brother also played the trombone in a band. So her side of the family was pretty musically inclined. So at an early age, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10, she started hammering on me to learn an instrument, and how beneficial it'll be later on. So around 11 years old, I decided I wanted to play the guitar. And so we got in the car and went down to the local music store. And the person there, I'm not sure if they wanted a bigger commission or what, but they said I was too small for a guitar, and that I had an accordion I could learn. And I was like, that's the most unsexy instrument I can think of. But my mother and father were like, yes, that's it, that's good. He'll learn the keyboards, blah, blah, blah. So we rented this accordion, and for 3 years I slaved over this thing and practiced, and didn't really enjoy it. And then in high school, this was back when public schools were pretty flush with money, and they all offered a music class that you had to take. And depending on the school, you had a choice of instruments that you could pick. And when I went in for my class, the instruments available were the violin or the trumpet. I was like, geez. I had already given up the accordion, and so I chose the trumpet, and I learned a little bit how to play it, enough to bang out a few notes in the class and pass. And then finally, after I got out of the Army, I decided I was going to bite the bullet and buy a guitar and learn how to play it. So I had a guitar, and my fingers were just getting calloused enough to really make some progress when my car was broken into and it was stolen. So I'm like, okay, what's the message here? So anyway, but anyway, in learning those instruments, practice was drummed into me a lot. And also I played a lot of sports, which, you practice and practice and practice, and once in a while have a game, but then the rest of the time you're practicing, getting good at your sport. Earlier, the first song we sang, Little Church, was written, like Al said, by a gentleman named Donovan. He's a Scottish musician, songwriter, who's now 80 and still performing. When I was living in New York City in early 70s, I went to see him at Carnegie Hall. And if you ever get a chance to go to Carnegie Hall, it's a real experience. I mean, this place holds thousands of people, but yet you can hear a pin drop on the stage. I mean, it's so acoustically tuned in to a performance of some sort, the way they built it. And so the curtain opens, and there's just this really beautiful rug on the floor and a meditation pillow. And he kind of walks out with his guitar and sits down, mics up, and starts playing. It was really a nice concert. I really enjoyed it. And the thing that really impressed me with this song is that it really lends itself to developing a spiritual practice. If you want your dream to be, take your time, go slowly. Do few things, but do them well. Day by day, stone by stone, build your secret slowly. Day by day, you'll grow too. You'll know heaven's glory. So those of you here today and viewing on YouTube are at various points in developing a spiritual practice. Or you might be totally new to a spiritual practice and what that involves. But remember, it's never too late to start a spiritual practice, no matter how old you are. You can make progress on it. Lao Tzu said, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step." So we can develop this spiritual practice. It might be practice sitting in silence and in stillness, or it's devotional prayer, or it's mindfulness, or meditation. There's several different aspects of a spiritual practice that can be practiced. Yogananda said, "Meditation is the greatest way of resurrecting your soul from the bondage of the body and from the shackles of all your trials. Meditate at the feet of the infinite. Learn to saturate yourself with the consciousness of God. Your trials may be heavy, may be great, but the greatest enemy of yourself is yourself. You are immortal. Your trials are mortal. They are changeable. You are unchangeable. You can unleash infinite powers and shatter your finite trials." Many of us were blessed joining Sunburst in the early years, back in the 70s, early 70s. Sunburst started in 1969 with a small group of people who sought out Norm in Santa Barbara, and because they had heard he had lived with Yogananda and said they wanted to learn how to meditate. And that kind of evolved into buying a piece of property up above Santa Barbara that we called Sunburst Farm. And that was the first property that we bought in 71, I think, or maybe late 70, I'm not sure. So at the time, Sunburst was set up as a communal living situation, and all the members donated their work to whatever project Sunburst had going on. And in return, Sunburst provided clothing and food, and we had communal meals together. And we developed over a very short period of time several properties. We had that farm up above Santa Barbara. And we had a ranch in the back that was totally off the grid, Lemuria Ranch, where goats were the primary thing that we did there. And actually had a goat camp where we had 2,000 meat goats working for the Forest Service, creating fire breaks. We had an apple orchard in Coyama Valley, and we had an avocado ranch on the coast just a few miles down the road from us. And also we developed natural food stores, bakery. We had sailing ships that we worked on and sailed. We had a bakery, a juice factory, restaurants, wholesale warehouses. And our members grew to like in the 350, somewhere around there. We had members, and they were spread out over these different properties and worked in the different businesses. And we often refer to this early years as our meditation boot camp. Because we had group meditations every morning and every evening. And in the early years, Norm used to come up from Santa Barbara, where he was living at the office on Coda Street, and talked on Sundays. And people would drive up from Santa Barbara and hear him talk. And often we had famous visitors that would come to Sunburst. The Moody Blues came a couple times. We had a Hopi chief, White Bear, who came a lot and offered all sorts of wisdom to us. We had some other Hopi elders that came and spoke to us over time. Lived in very simple dwellings, no TV, and that's one of the reasons we have so many songs in the songbook, because the musicians were free to create and not be distracted by TV. So it provided a strong foundation, stone by stone, day by day. And, for those of us that worked in the businesses, you had a long day, you drive up the hill and try to stay awake for evening meditation. And it was a really fun time, and also a little bit challenging too, to take it stone by stone and day by day. So the thing that you have to understand is, in seeking a spiritual practice, is not to overbuild at the beginning. Don't sit down at first and say, okay, I'm going to sit here for 30 minutes or 40 minutes. Start with 5 or 10. But the important thing is to establish a habit of meditating. And so each morning, right after you get up, and each evening before you go to sleep, if you do that day after day after day, it establishes a habit. It usually takes a couple weeks, and you find yourself looking forward to those moments where you can sit and be quiet. But you might get your mind and body resistance, which happens to everybody, and you think, this isn't working, or I'll do better later or tomorrow. But we can't make it optional or emotional. We have to take the time and go slowly. Yogananda said it is better to meditate a little every day than to meditate for long periods occasionally. So after we establish this practice, this habit, we can deepen it by, some people like to journal. They put down their day-by-day feelings and emotions and experiences. Or you can read spiritual books and get inspired by different people that have walked the path before you. You can seek other soul travelers who have a spiritual practice and communicate with them and maybe meditate with them. Or you could find a local meditation group that you can join and meditate with other people. And Sunburst offers Zoom meditations, Monday through Friday mornings and Tuesday evenings. You can get on Zoom and join a group of people that are meditating from all over the world, basically, that are joining. Norm used to say, by practicing meditations, we become astronauts of inner space. And I've always really liked that phrase. And it's really true, because when you turn those searchlights that are going out, you turn them in, and you start discovering the inner world within you that is the real reality. And you start feeling that life force moving up and down your spine, and feel the life force that's building and the thoughts calming. Things are revealed to you, whether it's a project that Spirit would like you to do, or ways that you can improve yourself. All sorts of things going on in inner space that we're usually not aware of unless we sit and be quiet and meditate. There's a Zen a proverb that says, you should sit in meditation for 20 minutes every day, unless you're too busy. Then you should sit for an hour. So I like that. So as we move into our silent period, it won't be an hour, and we'll do about 15 minutes of silence, and Nicole's going to lead us in with the bowls. When we start a spiritual practice, there might be many reasons why each of us start, but the main thing that needs to get established in your practice is one-pointed concentration, where the thoughts that are generating in your mind every microsecond, it seems, just flow by, and you don't dwell on any of those, and you just have one-pointed concentration. Sri Ramakrishna likened it to trying to thread a needle. He said, one must twist the fibers tightly. If there are any stray fibers, the needle cannot be threaded. To learn a meditation technique, there's just about any technique or path on the internet that you could find. And it's best to do just some soul searching to kind of establish within yourself what resonates to you as a possible spiritual practice. And when you pick it, it's been established that you get the best results if you can actually attend in person to a retreat, because you're getting away from your daily life, and it's also, once you learn the technique in the group and stay there a few days, it's a lot easier to keep the practice going when you go home. And like Curtis said, we just have a Kriya 1 meditation retreat coming up in 2 weeks. So I encourage anyone who might be interested in learning the Kriya technique to sign up for that and get going on your spiritual practice. I'd like to end with a quote from Norm. Remember, you are equipped atomically, molecularly, cellularly, right within your own body, now at this very moment, to fully experience cosmic consciousness, divine illumination, oneness with God. You don't have to go anywhere. It's all right within you. The whole creation is right within you. How can you see it? Meditate on it.
Let thy whisper in the temple of silence guide me to the right path. Let thy whisper in the temple of silence guide me to the right path that leads to thee. To thee, that leads to thee, that leads to thee, that leads to thee, that leads to thee. Let thy whisper in the temple of silence guide me to the right path. Let thy whisper in the temple of silence guide me to the right path that leads to thee, that leads to thee, that leads to thee. whisper in the temple of silence. Guide me to the right path. Let thy whisper in the temple of silence. Guide me to the right path that leads to thee. Whisper in the temple of silence. Guide me to the right path. Let thy whisper in the temple of silence. Guide me to the right path that leads to thee, that leads to thee. Whisper in the temple of silence. Guide me to the right